This story is about the price we pay for our dreams and the love we leave behind chasing them. It's about two souls who had everything until ambition built a distance that love couldn't cross. She chose dreams. He chose her. Reminds us that success feels empty when your heart has no one to share it with. And sometimes, the hardest goodbyes are the ones we say to the right person at the wrong time. The rain had started hours ago, not the kind that roared, but the kind that whispered against the glass, like a warning no one wanted to hear. Emma stood by the bus station window, suitcase by her feet, camera strap tangled around her wrist. Her reflection looked tired, or maybe scared. She couldn't tell which anymore. Behind her, Daniel's footsteps echoed softly. He didn't speak at first. He just watched her. The air between them was heavy, thick with all the things they weren't brave enough to say. "You're really going," he finally said. His voice was low, steady, the same voice that had always calmed her storms. Emma turned, eyes wet but stubborn. "You know I have to." "I know," he said, and that single word carried 1,000 unspoken pleas. They'd grown up together, from school bus rides to first heartbreaks. Daniel was the quiet boy who fixed her bike, who brought her coffee when she stayed up late editing photos, who believed in her long before anyone else did. And now, he was the man she was leaving behind to chase the life she thought she wanted. "This is your dream, Em," he said gently, stepping closer. "Just don't lose yourself in it." She smiled weakly. "I'll be fine." He laughed softly, not because he believed it, but because he didn't know what else to do. You always say that when you're about to fall apart. The bus horn cut through the silence. It was time. Emma looked up at him, really looked, and for a moment, everything inside her screamed to stay. His eyes, the rain, the ache, all of it told her that love wasn't supposed to feel like this. But dreams are loud, and sometimes they drown out everything else. She reached out, touched his face. "Promise me you'll wait." Daniel hesitated, not because he didn't want to, but because he already knew the truth. "If I promise," he said, "you'll never really leave." She didn't answer. She just kissed him. Slow, desperate, memorizing him like a photograph she'd never take again. And then she walked away. Daniel stood in the rain long after the bus disappeared, the echo of her goodbye still hanging in the air like unfinished music. He told himself he'd move on. That time would soften the edges. But love doesn't fade when it's real. It only hides. New York didn't welcome her softly, it swallowed her whole. The city glowed like it was made of dreams. But Emma quickly learned that dreams could be loud, exhausting, and lonely. Her first apartment was small. One window, creaky floor, walls thin enough to hear the neighbors fighting, laughing, existing. Every night she'd lie awake listening to the hum of the city, wondering if anyone out there felt as lost as she did. Her job at Luma magazine started fast. Deadlines, photo shoots, networking events. Everything she'd wanted was suddenly real. Her editor, Miranda Shaw, was a woman who spoke in commands, not suggestions. "Emotion is fine, Carter," she said on Emma's second day. "But deadlines pay the rent." Emma smiled like she understood, but something inside her deflated. Photography used to be her way of feeling, not performing. She missed taking pictures of ordinary things, Daniel fixing his truck, her dad laughing at the dinner table, the way sunlight used to hit her small-town windows. Now it was models, skyscrapers, champagne, and empty smiles. One evening, after a long shoot, she sat alone in the editing room. Dozens of perfect faces stared back at her from the screen. But all she could think about was Daniel's imperfect one, the way his hair always fell wrong, the way he smiled like he didn't know. He was the reason. She'd learned to love mornings. She scrolled through old photos on her phone, one of him holding her camera, laughing at something dumb she'd said. The photo was blurry, but somehow it was the most real thing she'd seen all week. Her phone buzzed. A text from home. "Dad, saw your photo on the magazine cover. Proud of you, Em. Daniel helped me fix the porch light today." Her throat tightened. She typed back, "Tell him I said hi," then deleted it, then typed again, then didn't send anything. That night, she walked through Times Square, lights flashing like fireworks. Everyone seemed alive, rushing somewhere, chasing something. She should have felt like she belonged. Instead, she felt like an outsider in her own success. As she stood watching the crowds, a man nearby laughed, the kind of laugh that sounded like Daniel's. Her heart jumped before her mind. Reminded her it wasn't him. Daniel wasn't here. Daniel was probably sitting under the same kind of quiet night sky they used to share. One that didn't smell like exhaust and ambition. A raindrop landed on her cheek. Then another. She smiled sadly. The city didn't rain softly like her hometown. It poured like it had something to prove. By the time she reached her apartment, she was drenched. She took out her camera and stood by the window. Below her, taxis honked, people hurried. Neon lights painted the wet streets gold and blue. She took a photo not because she had to, but because for the first time in weeks, she wanted to. Through the lens, she whispered, "I made it, Daniel." But in her chest, a quieter voice asked, "Then why do I feel like I lost everything?" Back home, life moved slower. The kind of slow that makes you notice every sound the wind makes when it passes. Through old trees, Daniel Hayes had learned to live with the silence Emma left behind. At first, he kept himself busy, fixing fences, working long hours at the local auto shop, pretending he didn't wait for her messages that never came. But silence has a way of settling in, not loud, just steady like a second heartbeat you never asked for. Every Sunday, he visited Emma's dad, Mr. Carter. They'd sit on the porch, 2 coffee mugs between them, talking about everything except her. But sometimes, when the light got soft and the sky turned that gentle orange Emma used to love, her name slipped out anyway. "Think she's doing well?" Daniel asked one evening, eyes fixed on the horizon. Mr. Carter smiled faintly. "You know her. She doesn't stop till she gets what she wants." "Yeah," Daniel said quietly. "That's what I loved about her." He didn't mean to use the past tense. It just slipped out. That night, Daniel sat in his truck longer than usual. The passenger seat still had the old blanket she used to keep there, faded now, but still carrying the faint scent of her perfume. He thought about throwing it away once. He couldn't. The letter. Months passed. Seasons changed, and then one day, Mr. Carter handed Daniel an envelope. "No return address," he said, eyes curious. Daniel opened it slowly, careful not to tear the edges. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Emma. Hey, stranger. I don't know if this will even reach you. Paris is beautiful but lonely. Everyone here speaks in art and silence. I'm supposed to be happy. I'm not sure if I am. Do you ever think about the people who made you, even when you thought you'd outgrown them? Sometimes I wonder if I ran towards something, or just away from you." Daniel read it 3 times, then folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and stared out at the setting sun. For the first time in 2 years, he let himself smile. Not a full one, just enough to remember what it felt like. That night he wrote back, "Hey world traveler, I fixed the porch light. Your dad says hi. The sky here still looks the same. You didn't run away from me, Em. You just chased something I couldn't give you. I hope you find what you're looking for, even if it's not me. A D." He didn't know if she'd ever read it. He just needed to send it, to let her know he was still real. Weeks turned into months again. Emma never replied. She wanted to, but couldn't. Her career had reached its peak. Gallery shows, interviews, awards. Yet, every applause felt like a reminder of who wasn't there to hear it. One night, at a crowded art event in Paris, a journalist asked her, "What drives you, Emma?" She hesitated. Everyone expected her to say passion or art or vision. Instead, she said softly, "Regret." The interviewer smiled awkwardly, not sure if she was serious. But she was. Every photograph she took, every face she framed, carried the same unspoken question: what did I lose to capture this? Back home, Daniel's life began to move again. He started teaching photography at the local community center. Not because he wanted to replace her, but because teaching kids how to see the world through a lens felt like keeping a piece of her alive. Every time he lifted a camera, he remembered her hands over his, showing him how to focus. "Look for the light," she used to say. He finally understood. She wasn't just talking about photography. One evening, Daniel stood in front of the community center door, locking up after class. The sky was fading pink, the kind of sunset that felt like an apology. He reached into his jacket pocket and found Emma's letter again, folded, worn but still intact. He whispered, "I hope you found your light, Em." Miles away, in a Paris apartment filled with framed photographs, Emma stood at her window watching the same kind of sky, and in that strange, quiet moment, 2 hearts, separated by continents and choices, felt the same ache. Emma didn't plan on returning home. She'd built her whole identity on the idea that leaving was the only way forward. But sometimes life doesn't wait for your permission to fall apart. It happened on a cold Friday morning in Paris. Her phone rang just as she was setting up for an exhibition shoot in light, pouring through tall windows, models waiting, assistants buzzing around. She almost didn't answer. When she did, everything stopped. Her father had suffered a stroke. The camera slipped from her hand, crashing against the floor. For the first time in years, she didn't rush to pick it up. The next 24 hours blurred. Flights, airport terminals, the quiet hum of grief that seemed to follow her across time zones. When she finally reached home, the small-town air hit her like a memory she wasn't ready to face. The hospital was quiet, too clean, too still. Her father looked older, smaller somehow, but when his eyes opened and saw her, he smiled. "Em," he whispered, voice weak but warm. "You came." She gripped his hand. "Of course I did. You always were." "My brave one," he said. "But even brave ones need somewhere to rest." Tears burned her eyes. "Just rest, Dad, I'm here." That night, after he drifted back to sleep, Emma stepped outside the hospital. The parking lot was empty except for one old truck. She recognized it instantly. The dent in the door, the worn-out paint. Daniel. He was leaning against the hood, hands in his jacket pockets, looking at her the way someone looks at a ghost they'd stopped believing in. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind carried all the words they'd buried. "You look different," he said finally. "So do you," she whispered. He smiled softly. "Guess time does that." She nodded, fighting the lump in her throat. "Thank you for being here." He shrugged. "Your dad's like family. You know that." "I know," she said. "Still, thank you." He studied her for a moment. The expensive coat, the tired eyes, the way her hands trembled when she thought no one noticed. "You okay?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I thought I'd have more time." Daniel nodded slowly. "We all do." The silence that followed wasn't the heavy kind this time. It was gentle, familiar, like two people remembering how to breathe the same air again. Over the next few days, Daniel visited often, sometimes to bring food, sometimes just to sit quietly with her. They didn't talk about the past, but it lingered between them like a shared secret. One afternoon, Emma went back to her childhood home to grab some clothes. The house smelled like old wood and coffee, the same way it always had. In her old room, dust covered the framed photos she'd left behind. One of them, a picture of her and Daniel at a summer fair, made her pause. They looked so young, so sure that love was enough. She ran her fingers across the frame. "You were right, Daniel," she whispered. "Dreams don't mean much if you lose the reason you had them." That evening, she found him sitting outside the hospital again, sunset painting everything gold. "Do you still take pictures?" he asked, not looking at her. She shook her head. "Not lately." "That's a shame," he said. "You used to make everything look alive." "I don't feel like I can anymore," she admitted. He looked at her then, really looked, the way he used to when she was about to give up. "Maybe you just need to remember what you were trying to see." She frowned. "What was that?" "Home." The word hit her harder than she expected. Later that night, Emma sat beside her father's bed, camera in hand for the first time in months. She took a photo, not for a magazine, not for fame, just to remember him. The quiet hero who'd believed in her even when she forgot how to believe in herself. The flash startled him awake. He smiled faintly. "Still taking pictures?" "Yeah," she whispered. "Just one that matters." He nodded, eyes soft. "That's my girl." Hours later, as she sat holding his hand, she realized something. She'd spent years chasing beauty around the world, only to find it here, in the quiet rise and fall of her father's breath. And when that breath stopped a week later, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of love, memories, and every goodbye she'd never said. At the funeral, Daniel stood beside her. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. After everyone left, he walked her to the car. "Emma," he said softly. "I'm sorry." She looked at him, eyes tired but clear. "For what?" "For not stopping you that night." She shook her head. "You did. I just didn't listen." The wind picked up, scattering a few leaves across the empty lot. She smiled faintly through her tears. "You know what's funny? The world felt smaller when I was with you." He smiled back. Maybe it was big enough already. For the first time in years, she laughed quiet, broken, real. That night, alone in her room, she opened her laptop. Paris emails blinked on the screen, invitations, deadlines, contracts. She stared at them for a long time before closing it all. The next morning, she called Miranda. "I won't be coming back," she said simply. Silence. "Then you're walking away from everything, Carter." Emma looked out the window, sunlight breaking through the clouds. "No," she said. "I'm walking towards something. Grief doesn't leave all at once. It fades like light after sunset, slow, reluctant, taking a little piece of you each day." For weeks after her father's funeral, Emma moved through her days in silence. She didn't return to Paris, didn't touch her camera, didn't chase deadlines. The world felt like it had stopped, and for once she didn't try to restart it. But small towns have their own rhythm of healing. Morning walks past old fences, the smell of fresh bread from the corner cafe, neighbors who wave even when they don't know what to say, and Daniel, always somewhere nearby, fixing a car, dropping by to check on her, pretending it was about something practical when they both knew it wasn't. One morning he knocked on her door with a small wooden box. "What's this?" she asked. He grinned. "You'll see." Inside were old camera parts, her father's, the ones he'd used before she ever learned how to hold a lens. The metal was tarnished, the glass cracked, but when she lifted it, something familiar stirred inside her. "I thought you might want it back," Daniel said. He kept it in his workshop. Said it was your real first camera. Her throat tightened. "I forgot about this." He smiled. "Yeah, well, some things wait for you to remember." That night she cleaned the camera, carefully polishing the lens until she could see her reflection. For the first time in months, she lifted it to her eye and looked through the viewfinder. The world looked softer, quieter, real. Over the next few days, Emma started taking pictures again, not of models or fashion sets, but of her town. Old men playing chess under the oak tree, kids chasing bubbles in the park, lights spilling through curtains in the local diner. Each click of the shutter felt like a heartbeat returning. One evening, she found herself outside Daniel's auto shop. He was covered in grease, sleeves rolled up, music playing low. She raised the camera instinctively and snapped a picture before she could stop herself. He looked up laughing. "Hey, you still taking photos without asking, huh?" She smiled shyly. "Old habits." He wiped his hands on a rag, walked over. "You really gonna keep pretending you're not amazing at it?" "I don't know who I am anymore," she said honestly. Daniel's eyes softened. "Then maybe it's time to find out." The weeks turned into months. Their friendship deepened again. Easy laughter over coffee. Silent walks by the river, old songs playing in his truck. And yet beneath every smile there was something unspoken. The kind of longing that never really fades, just learns to hide better. One night during the town's autumn fair, the same one where they'd taken that old picture years ago, Daniel found her standing near the lights, camera around her neck. "Déjà vu," he teased. She laughed. "Except this time no cotton candy fight." He chuckled. Yet, then he grew quiet, eyes tracing her face under the glow of lanterns. "You know, I used to come here every year. Always wondered if I'd see you again." "And now that you have?" she asked. He exhaled. "Now I'm trying not to mess it up." For a moment, the noise of the fair disappeared. No music, no chatter, just the hum of two hearts remembering their rhythm. She looked up at him. "Maybe we were just waiting for the right version of us." Daniel smiled. "And maybe this is it." Later that night, as the fireworks began, Emma took a photo of him, the lights reflecting in his eyes, that familiar half-smile tugging at his lips. When she looked at the picture, she realized something. All her life she'd chased light, the perfect angle, the perfect exposure. And here it was, standing right in front of her. It wasn't fame, it wasn't Paris, it was him. The next morning, she went to the town art gallery, a small place with creaky floors and sunlit walls. She met the curator, Mrs. Langford, an older woman who'd known her father. "Back home for good?" Mrs. Langford asked with a kind smile. Emma nodded. "I think so." "Then maybe it's time you show people what home looks like." That's how her first local exhibit began. The Light Between Us. A series of photographs that weren't about glamour or perfection, but emotion, everyday people, love in quiet moments, beauty in imperfection. The town came. So did Daniel. He stood at the back watching her talk about each photograph, proud, patient, and quietly in love. When it ended, she walked up to him. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For reminding me what mattered." He smiled. "You always knew. You just needed to look through the right lens." That night, as they walked home under the fading lights, their hands brushed. She didn't pull away this time. "Daniel," she whispered. "Yeah? I think I'm ready to start again." He smiled, the kind of smile that feels like sunrise. "Then let's start where we left off." And for the first time in years, Emma felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Peace. It was almost poetic just when Emma found peace. Life tested her again. Her exhibit, The Light Between Us, went viral online after a local blogger shared photos from the opening night. Within weeks, art magazines picked it up. Her inbox flooded with interview requests. collaborations, and, eventually, a letter from Paris. We'd like you to curate a global photography showcase. 3 years, full sponsorship, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The same city that had once made her and broken her and was calling again. That evening, she sat by her window, holding the letter. The same sunset painted the sky outside, but it felt different now. Before, it had been a dream. Now it was a decision. Daniel arrived later, still smelling faintly of motor oil and coffee. He leaned against the doorframe, smiling like always. "Hey, superstar. What's got you looking like you lost your favorite camera?" She handed him the letter silently. He read it once, twice, then folded it carefully. "So," he said quietly, "Paris again. Paris again." He nodded slowly, setting the paper down on the table. "That's huge, Em." She looked at him. "Yeah, it is." But he could see it in her eyes, the same storm from years ago. "Do you want to go?" he asked. She hesitated. "I don't know. I thought I did. I thought if I ever got another chance, I'd take it without blinking. And now?" She exhaled shakily. "Now it feels like I'd be leaving everything that finally makes sense." The days that followed felt heavy. Everyone in town was excited for her, proud even. But Daniel, he kept his distance. He didn't want to hold her back again. He told himself he was fine. He told himself he'd be happy for her. But late at night, when the garage was quiet, he'd stare at her photograph hanging by his desk, the one she'd taken of him at the fair, and feel that ache return. The same ache from years ago, the same fear of being left behind. A week later, she found him fixing an old truck outside his shop. The sun was setting behind him, the light warm and golden, the kind she loved. "Hey," she said softly. He didn't look up. "Hey, I got the flight details." He nodded, tightening a bolt that didn't really need tightening. "When?" "Next month." Silence, just the sound of the wrench clicking. Finally, she said, "I don't want to leave things unsaid again." He looked up, eyes unreadable. "Then say them." She swallowed hard. "I love what I do. You know that. But I also love me?" He finished quietly. Her voice trembled. "Yeah, I do." He looked away, jaw tight. "Then why does it feel like love's never enough?" Tears burned in her eyes. "Because it's not supposed to be a choice." "But it always is," he whispered. "You chose before, and you'll choose again. Just don't lie to yourself this time." That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat on her porch, camera in her lap, staring at the stars. The old wooden box Daniel had given her sat beside her, her father's camera, still carrying his fingerprints. She thought about everything she'd lost chasing light, and everything she'd found when she stopped running. The next morning, she drove to Daniel's shop before sunrise. He was already there, as if he hadn't slept either. "Couldn't wait to say goodbye?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "No, I came to say I'm staying." He froze. "Emma." She stepped closer. "I spent years trying to capture the perfect light. And then I realized I already had it. I just didn't know how to hold it." Tears welled in her eyes. "Paris can wait." "This can't." Daniel stared at her for a long moment, the morning sun catching in his eyes. Then, slowly, he smiled, the kind of smile that said everything words couldn't. He took her hand. "Welcome home, Em." Later that week, she wrote a letter to the Paris gallery. "Thank you for believing in me. But I found the light I was chasing. And it's not in a city. It's in the people who remind me why I started capturing life in the first place." She signed it. "With love, Emma Carter." That evening, she joined Daniel at the edge of the old bridge, camera in hand. The sky blazed with color, pinks, golds, and deep blues. She lifted her camera, framed the shot, and clicked. He laughed softly. "Another masterpiece?" She smiled. "No, just another memory worth keeping." And for the first time in forever, she didn't feel torn between love and career, because somehow she had both. 5 years later, the small town looked the same. Quiet mornings, golden fields. That same old bridge where Emma once found her light again. But this time, things were different. Emma stood at the front of the town's newly opened Art and Memory Center, a modest gallery built on the site of her father's old workshop. Inside, sunlight spilled across wooden floors, catching on photographs that told stories of ordinary people and extraordinary love. At the entrance hung her most famous piece, a black and white portrait titled, "The Light Between Us." It showed Daniel standing under the fair lights years ago, smiling at her like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. It had won her international recognition, not because it was technically perfect, but because it was honest. Daniel entered quietly, wiping his hands on a cloth. Still the same man. Still running the garage, still her calm in the noise. "Looks like you made it big," he teased. Looking around at the crowd admiring her work, she smiled. "We made it, you mean?" He chuckled. "I just fixed your car, remember?" "You fixed a lot more than that," she said softly. After the guests left, the two of them stood alone in the gallery. Outside, the evening light poured through the windows, warm and familiar. Emma looked around, at the faces in her photographs, the laughter, the tears, the raw moments. Every image had a story, but one in particular made her pause. It was a candid shot she'd taken recently, Daniel holding their daughter, Lily, on his shoulders as she reached for a bubble floating through the park. The title beneath it read, "Home." Daniel noticed her smiling. "You still take pictures when I'm not looking." She grinned. "That's the only way to get your real smile." He shook his head. "You're impossible. And you're patient," she said, wrapping her arms around him. "We make it work." He kissed her forehead. "Yeah, we do." Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Emma sat by her desk, the same old wooden box beside her, her father's camera inside. She lifted it carefully, ran her thumb along the worn leather and whispered, "Thanks for teaching me how to see the world, Dad." Then she looked out the window, at Daniel closing the shop across the street, the glow of warm light following him home. For years she had chased light. Now she lived in it. Months later, an invitation arrived. The Louvre Museum in Paris wanted to feature her work in a retrospective titled Love and Light, The Art of Emma Carter. She accepted, but this time she wasn't going alone. When they arrived in Paris, Daniel carried Lily on his shoulders just like in the photo. The city felt different now, not a dream to chase, but a memory to revisit. During the exhibit opening, as people admired her photographs, a journalist asked, "Miss Carter, what's the secret behind your success?" She smiled gently, knowing when to stop chasing the world and start capturing the parts of it that matter. The journalist followed up, "Do you ever miss the old days? The city, the rush?" Emma looked at Daniel, who was standing across the room laughing with their daughter. "Not for a second," she said. That night, she walked along the Seine, camera in hand. The moonlight shimmered over the river, soft and gold. She snapped one last photo, Daniel holding Lily's hand, both of them laughing. It wasn't perfect lighting, and the focus was slightly off. But to her, it was everything. Back home weeks later, she added that final photo to the gallery wall. Beneath it, she placed a small plaque that read, "The best picture I ever took wasn't about light or fame. It was about love that stayed when everything else faded." She stepped back, looked around, and smiled. A quiet, content smile that spoke of every heartbreak, every risk, every second chance. The camera clicked one last time, Daniel behind it this time. "Got it," he said. "You look happy." "I am," she whispered. "Finally."